You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darragh O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello everybody and welcome to Phoenix 92.5 FM, the WrestlingRewind.com, nerdtoknowmedia.com. My name is Darragh O'Connor and you're listening to the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who don't hate wrestling. We have a very special show this week because we've done a show plan, Martin.
I'm still in shock.
And we normally don't. Normally we're like, what are we covering? Well, let's just do this. But, you know, we had to do a very important rundown of this man's career, because this weekend is going to be Sting's last ever match. I don't believe that, because when someone retires in wrestling, they show up either for money in TNA or they show up presenting a trophy in Saudi Arabia to a football team.
Well, this isn't Sting's last match. He has retired before. So no one really ever retires in wrestling. But they are making a song and dance of it. There is a pay-per-view solely for it, and it is going to be coming everybody's way in AEW on Sunday. So we're going to try to get this out a little bit earlier than normal. But if you're listening to this on Phoenix FM, thank you so much. As I said, you are listening to the Wrestling Rewind. My name is Darragh O'Connor, and I'm joined by the one, the only Mr. 1 and 0, Mr. Martin Hardy. Thanks, Martin. I'm just buzzing this weekend, Darragh. I have Monday booked off work, which has kind of ruined this weekend. Have you noticed that whenever you book time off work, it's nearly not worth it, because you have to work twice as hard in the days running up to it so that you can take the bloody day off? But I'm not letting that get me down. I am hyped for this pay-per-view. Obviously, all the stuff around Sting is amazing. Yes. But also, because AEW does their pay-per-views a bit differently, this is the first one of 2024. There's been a 3-month build to this. It feels like the first couple of years of AEW where they only did 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year, and each one was massive. So this feels huge, not just because of Sting, but also because of that. I'm just buzzing this whole weekend.
Well, look, I mean, it's definitely a show that has people talking about it, which is never a bad thing. You know, I think the next show they have is in Wembley so far. They're doing the pay-per-views that are announced. So on this card, it actually looks pretty good. It is 100% overshadowed by Sting's last match, but the actual card itself looks really, really good. There's like a strong Intercontinental Championship, a really good AEW match, World Championship. First appearance of Will Ospreay, which is pretty cool.
AEW World Championship, this is like, and there are so few of these in all of wrestling, where I'm actually delighted it's a 3-way. Normally, you see a 3-way match, they're like, oh, that's just a cop-out, so one guy can lose without being pinned. And that. But no, this has been built brilliantly, and I actually love the Samoa Joe title run. I love this kind of descent into being a petulant heel that Hangman is on, and obviously Swerve Strickland's on top of the world right now. Like, whatever way this goes, this is a win-win-win. So I'm delighted that this is a 3-way.
Can I call something out ridiculous, though?
Go on.
The Continental Crown Championship. So this match, the way I'm looking at it here, it's for the Continental Championship, the Ring of Honor World Championship, and the NJPW Strong Opening Championship, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you not remember when we watched TNA and they had a match for all the belts? Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you not see how it's very similar?
Oh, yeah. So this is actually, I kind of have a similar issue with the Continental Crown. So it's basically, it was made to kind of be an homage to the old Japanese Triple Crown, which was 3 different titles from different companies. It's supposed to be an American version of that, and obviously Eddie Kingston's big into his Japanese wrestling, and I think it was kind of like a thing for him. I would have preferred if the Continental Crown, like when you won the Continental Classic, that it was like a trophy or something, and that you just had it for the year until the next one, not that it was something you went out and defended, because it kind of makes it pointless, because it's like, well, if you want that title, why would you go through a grueling, like 8-match tournament when you could just wait until someone else wins it and then challenge them?
Sorry. I'm just seeing a really, really funny thing on Reddit here, and it's a picture of Tony Khan and at the press conference with who's the commentary, WCW commentary guy? Who was he?
Oh, Tony Schiavone.
Tony Schiavone, yes, sorry. That just left my head for some reason. With Tony Schiavone, right? And it's AEW Continental Classic winner to receive hundreds of additional belts, because why not at this point? And it's just, they're just surrounded by belts. It's a bit much. Look, as I said, I get it. It makes sense. But yeah, it is.
Like,
it's a bit much. It's a bit much. And I love belts. Genuinely, I think belts are class. But at the same time, it's like,
yeah, no, I agree. I would have loved if it was like a trophy that you won and you just kept for the year, and your name was put on it, and because you could make a whole lineage out of it like that. So like, that's a wee bit disappointing. But like, once you get past that, Eddie Kingston versus Bryan Danielson, and they're gonna kill each other. Like, that looks amazing.
Yeah, but why at this point?
What do you mean? They've been feuding for...
No. I just... My TNA-ness is triggered now. That's the thing. Because I see all these belts, I'm like, oh, is Kurt Angle going to come out and marry Jeff Jarrett's wife? Is that what's going to happen? Is Eddie Kingston going to come out and look more homeless than he already does, so he can like try and hit on Brie Bella? Because that's where this goes.
Well, that's the one thing about Eddie Kingston, is counting him like just not to get involved in any of that nonsense. But
he's walking around with 3 belts for no reason.
Well, like I said, the Continental Classic was amazing. It was the best thing to happen wrestling last year. But yeah, I'm with you on the belts. I wish it had been something else.
Yeah, no, sorry, I don't mean to take it away. It's just that's just it's just a bit much, It's just like, someone should have said, "Hey, you know what, Tony? Let's not do that." You know what it's like? It's like when you have remember when you were a kid and you had all the action figures, and you'd I
was very deprived.
Oh, fair. Okay, when you're playing SmackDown versus Raw as a kid, and then you could you end up having your favorite wrestler and you had all the belts.
Oh yeah.
That's what it's like. It's like, so yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of silly. Like, fair enough. You see, there is a line between, the double belt thing is all right. Like the Euro Continental Champion, that was funny because it was like there was 3 of them. So I mean, with the Continental Crown, if it is just like Eddie Kingston's thing that he holds on to until he retires, that's pretty cool.
No, I think it is slightly different in AEW, because they actually do, like, he does defend them in New Japan. He does defend them on Ring of Honor. He does defend them in Rev Pro. Like, Orange Cassidy was in Revolution Pro in England last week defending his international title, so
really?
There is...
Okay.
Yeah, so there is, like, that was also Will Ospreay's last sort of indie show before he...
It was, yeah.
Goes full tilt for AEW. So, I mean, there is, like, I agree with you, it is a bit daft, but there is slightly more to it than just, he just has these 3 things that he carries around.
That's fair. Well, hey, look, I'm willing to give it a chance. Eddie Kingston,
forget all that.
Eddie Kingston just rubs me the wrong way in every conceivable way,
Man, I'm telling you, if you, I don't know if you've been watching Dynamite or Collision lately, but they have been like ramping this feud up the past couple of weeks.
He just really, really looks like someone who jumped the guardrail.
Yeah.
You know, that's why he genuinely looks like someone who jumped the guardrail. And it's like, why is this fragrant in the ring? Like, you know.
But I'm telling you, see all that stuff. See, when the bell rings on that match on Sunday, you will forget it because these two are going to kick the living hell out of each other.
I know Daniel Bryan is incredibly boring too. Like, that's the thing.
What?
Yeah, I don't like Daniel Bryan at all.
Well, what are we doing here?
No, I'm just saying that. Like, I mean, I'm still waiting to be blown away by him. You know?
Oh my God! I thought last year was possibly the best year of his career.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, even in WWE, I was just like, oh, it's hard. It's just not my style of wrestling. You know? Like, I'm still waiting for it to be like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch the last month of Dynamite. Of this feud from Dynamite and Collision, right? And I'm going to try and get into it because there has to be something. I just don't see what it is. But then again, you know, it is what it is. Like, I think there's enough on this card. I guess the point I was making was there's enough on this card that kind of there's something for everybody. Like, like there really is something here for everybody. Like, yeah, I know I might not like Daniel Bryan or Eddie Kingston, but that's one match. You know, I will be watching it because of Sting's last match. I really do want to see that three-way AEW title match because that'd be unreal.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe's on the run of his career that isn't the X Division title run that he had.
It's amazing the second lease of life he's gotten.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So I mean, there is a lot.
BCC versus FTR will be class.
Yeah. I was going to say that looks unreal too.
Women's title match is going to be made like Deonna Purrazzo and Toni Storm. Like, there's
what do you make of Toni Storm getting done dirty during the wrestling awards when she said she has the worst gimmick? I think her gimmick's great.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I was really confused by that too. I'm like, really?
Do you know, it may be in the hands of someone who didn't play it so well. It could be kind of goofy and stupid, but she does it she's so committed to it.
That's what I'm saying. I was genuinely shocked by that. Like, really was.
But is that one of those fan voted things?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're like any of those things, you get your fans from whichever side and they spam it and
yeah, but I don't understand. I don't understand Toni Storm specifically. I mean, both women in this match, Toni Storm and Donna Purrazzo is going to be. That's probably going to be the steeper match of the night. Genuinely.
Oh yeah,
they're what I mean. They're going to work incredibly well.
They're excellent wrestlers. Like,
yeah, it's going to be phenomenal. Like, okay, so talk to me about what you're excited about on this show, and then we'll go into Sting.
On Revolution.
Correct.
Okay, so like I said, the matches we mentioned there are all looking incredible. I'm really looking forward to the international match. So it's Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong, and part of the reason I'm looking forward to that is because Orange Cassidy had an amazing run with the international title where he was like this battling champion, and then he was supposed to drop it. But there was, I think John Moxley got injured or whatever, and it ended up anyway that Cassidy ended up getting the title back, and they've done the kind of fighting champion run again. It just hasn't really hit the same time, the second time around. And I think he's dropping it here, and I think that's going to be great for him. Let him go off and do something else, and it's going to be great for Roddy Strong and this Undisputed Kingdom. But the big thing is, I think they have something massive planned for the Sting match. Like, just huge. Like, Sting's out talking about it. He's saying like, this is, I'm gonna like, this is the last match of my career, and we're gonna leave fans with something like they've never seen before. This pay-per-view was supposed to be where they debuted Mercedes Moné, but they've obviously put that off by a week. So they're solely and fully focusing on the Sting thing. So like you say, it's an awesome card. I think there's 9 matches on it so far. There's not a dud among them, but like you said, the whole thing is overshadowed by Sting. I'm hoping we get like during the course of the whole pay-per-view, just like we vignettes or we clips or whatever, just going through his career and really, really building this up.
No, absolutely. I think it's one of the things that like you're really, really, really going to just take away. You know, it's going to be like, this is one of the moments in AEW where I think if they screw it up, it'll be like the exploding barbed wire match.
Yep, and that legitimately set them. I think that legitimately set them back years.
Years. Oh no, it did. It if you can point to one thing that like that did so much damage to AEW that isn't called CM Punk, it's it's literally that. You know, and I think this,
and it was because like the build for that was so good. That it meant they had more eyes than ever on the product.
Yeah, and I think the exact same thing is going to happen here, where it's like, right, do not mess this up.
Yeah, well,
mess it up.
The only thing that gives me confidence is that this booking of Sting, like this run of his, this has been the best booking of any legend character ever. Like, he has been a constant on the show, but he's never been normalized. He's been protected in his matches, but he doesn't look like he can't go. Like, he still looks like he can go, even though like he's obviously being like protected and only doing tags and multi-mods and stuff. They've been so careful with this character that I don't see them screwing it up now. I think at the very end, you know, when we get that, I don't know if he's going to go the whole Cody Rhodes Undertaker, you know, take his boots off in the ring or whatever, but I think it's going to be an emotional night.
Yeah, I think so.
Plus, by that stage, it'll be like 5 a.m. and I'll have a full bottle of whiskey in me. So
everything's emotional.
Etten could set me off crying at that stage.
Well, look, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Obviously, we'll talk about it next week and see what the story is. But that's not why we're here to talk about that show. It's just an aside. The main reason why we're here this week is to talk about, well, one, because we have a time slot on the radio, we need to fill it, but also because we're like, right, we're going to take a break away from jumping in the time machine, and we're actually going to follow a script this week. So basically, we're going to go from the entire career of Sting through WCW. We're going to breeze through that, talk about his WWE stint, which I think is the best way to put it, his AEW era, which we'll get into. But the meat and bones of this is going to be TNA. It's going to be his stint in TNA wrestling, which is unlike anyone else. We have a couple of matches as well, so we're going to be jumping into 4 matches in this show. But let's start with probably the most well-known part of Sting's career, which of course is WCW. So for anyone that wasn't watching WCW, you're probably aware that there were... It's hard to explain. WCW is confusing, right? But in its like revised history, or in its like core mythology, there was Sting, Ric Flair, and the NWO, right? That's what it was. And then obviously Sting would be in the NWO Wolfpack and all that convoluted mess. But when you think of WCW, you think of Goldberg, you think of the NWO, you think of Ric Flair, and you think of Sting. Sting was the icon, right? And that's why he was known as. He had so many feuds with Ric Flair, the formation of the Wolfpack, him actually showing up, fake Sting, and then a really weird career choice. Like obviously, so we talked about the barbed wire match being like irreparable damage to AEW for years. Sting's damage was actually done by a win. The win at Starrcade '97. Remember that, where Bret Hart came out and counted fast and then said it wasn't a fast count?
So I don't know if that was Hogan backstage politics.
It was. No, it's been confirmed that it was, yeah.
So basically, for anyone who doesn't know, it was Sting versus Hogan for the title, and Hogan was going to win, but it was like the referee was supposed to do a really obviously fast count. Like, you know the way in wrestling, it's when they want to make something obvious, it's almost pantomime. They go way over the top. So this referee was supposed to be like, 1, 2, 3, and give the title to Hogan, and then Bret Hart is going to be all like, oh no, there's going to be no screw jobs when I'm here, and he was going to get in and beat the referee, and I'm going to referee this match and start the bell. But what happened was Hogan had said to the referee, it doesn't work for me, brother, just do a normal count. So the referee did a normal count. Hogan perfectly, legitimately, middle of the ring, won the title. Then Bret Hart hopped into the ring, beat up the referee, and restarted the match. So, yeah, a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, and that really, not only did that, like, as I said, not only did it do damage to Sting as a character, but Sting never really recovered from that, and it was kind of the start of the company really starting to go downhill. That was 1997. They'd have one more really good year, give or take, and then you'd be in, like...
But it's mad because and that's like
4 years. 4 years after that, the company no longer existed.
And we covered that era with pay-per-views, and it is largely terrible. But the thing is that WCW has kind of become a byword for terrible wrestling. But when Sting came into WCW, late 80s, early 90s, this is the golden age. Like, Sting's matches with Flair in the late 80s are legitimate all-time classics. Like, Hold Up Today had people at the time, like, they had broken out of the wrestling bubble and were kind of people were talking about them in the mainstream. Like, when he came in, it was huge. His deal with his feud with the Four Horsemen,
legendary.
Huge. Oh, like, amazing. But yeah, as you say, as with everything, as with the aforementioned Bret Hart, WCW just couldn't help themselves but WCW it.
But what's interesting is, as well, like, most people may not, like, most wrestling fans at least know what Sting looks like. They may not have known his TNA work, because, like, again, like, a lot of people didn't watch TNA at the time. If you have to be a certain age, and also you had to have the channels to watch WCW. But what's crazy thing about this is, like, everyone still knew what Sting looked like. He still had the approach, but at this point, during his, like, heyday, he wasn't doing the Crow gimmick. He was just the Stinger,
Surfer
Sting, which is, like, really, really funny when you think about it. You're like, his most
kind
iconic
of like
look.
So he had kind of like a buzz cut.
Yeah.
But bleached blonde. He had face paint, but it was like really colorful face paint. It's actually very similar to the Ultimate Warrior's face paint.
Because they were tag team partners initially.
Yeah, because before he went to WCW, him and the Ultimate Warrior were tag team partners in, maybe it was Jim Crockett Promotions or one of the territory days anyway. Sting, I think he was called Flash at the time, and the Ultimate Warrior, the Dingo Warrior.
The Dingo Warrior, yeah.
They were the so wrestling, like, tends to, like, blatantly copy whatever's happening at the moment. So, like, Sting's most famous gimmick obviously comes from the film The Crow, but his tag team with the Ultimate Warrior was called the Blade Runners.
Yes,
now,
they were.
If you were to take that tag team and the year they come out, what do you think was one of the most popular movies of that year?
Despite the fact that gimmick, and neither one of them have anything got to do with replicants, still a good name.
They just thought Blade Runner. That's a cool sound name.
Just like the name.
But hey, you actually can't blame them for that, because the film Blade Runner is based off a book, but the book is not called Blade Runner. The book is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
That's true.
So you can see what they changed the name.
I bought that book 4 times. I've read it about 6 or 7, and I still don't own it because I keep giving it away to people.
Yeah, because people see it, they think, oh, cool, the book version of Blade Runner, and you have to be like, there's very little shares, very little in common with the...
There's very little Blade Runner in this Blade Runner book.
It's like, have you ever read Starship Troopers?
Yes, I have, yeah.
It's just, like, literally, the name is all that has in common with the movie.
I think the movie is so much better than the book. There's a new game out. The game is pretty good, but Helldivers apparently Starship Troopers in space.
Helldivers too, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about it, so I need to pick that up. But
I'm raging it's only out on PC and PlayStation.
Yeah, eventually they'll do a port.
Hopefully, yeah. I think in the end, money always.
That's it. Yeah. So look, it is funny when you're like, oh, okay, Sting, like Crow Sting. You're like, yeah, that was for 4 years. He had this whole career beforehand. So, I don't want to get into the doldrums of it, because where I really pick up with Sting and where I really got an appreciation for Sting was in TNA, right? Like, yeah, I was a big WCW guy, but I was a kid. I was a proper adult watching TNA and suffering through TNA when it was terrible. But Sting was always there, right? And a very funny story about Sting in general. We were in a TNA show, and this was in the National Stadium, right? So TNA used to do shows in the National Stadium. They did a few, and then they did an ill-fated one in the Tree Arena, which was like an AEW show. There was nobody there. Sorry. I had to. No, this genuinely was. No, when people say that about AEW and it's like the hard camera side is full. This was literally, there was one section that was full. The rest completely empty, right? And that's why TNA went back to doing the smaller arenas. And this was after Jeff Hardy had been, his issues had arrived. Let's put it this way. So he had been arrested. He had, wasn't able to travel. And there was a sign. I still have it actually. It's somewhere in my house, and it says like a proper TNA sign. I cannot find it. If I find it, I'll post it on the social media. I swear. It's like, Jeff Hardy cannot wrestle tonight because of injury. In his place, there will be Sting. And everybody was like, everyone was like, no, Jeff Hardy can't travel because of his criminal record. This is a lie. We're not stupid. But we all got to see Sting as a result of it. So that was pretty cool. Like Sting wrestling in the National Stadium to like 1,000 people. You got
a really good version. So I know TNA is your era. So TNA got a really good version of Sting because towards the end of WC, like, I mean, basically in his whole, like through the 80s and 90s, Sting had issues with alcohol, drug abuse, and steroids. And it was towards the end of WCW, like the last couple of years of it, he kind of went to rehab and he became a born-again Christian. And
we got Jesus Sting.
He got Jesus. And it actually worked for him. Like
it did, yeah.
Legitimately dropped all that stuff, and you got this new, like, completely revitalized, reinvigorated version of Sting. So obviously WCW went down. Loads of contracts were bought out by WWE, but because of a mixture of, his sobriety and not wanting to work the schedule, but also because he's now a born-again Christian, having an issue with some of the stuff that WWE was doing, he didn't take the offer to go to WWE. So you, like, TNA got legitimately probably the best version of Sting in years.
Oh yeah, no, they absolutely did. And the thing about it is, it's like, not only did we get, because this, like, the reason why we talk about WWA is we have to sometimes, and Sting was there. I
forgot he was in WWA.
He was.
He was the champion for
a while. Yeah, like, that's like the magic key. That's the Rosetta Stone of, like, understanding what happened to, like, the indies, basically, when WWE was the only game in town. That was the life raft that carried people over to ROH and TNA.
I was looking up stuff for this podcast. I was looking up, like weird facts about Sting or whatever. And one of them was, he's the only man to ever hold the NWA, WCW, TNA, and WWE world title. And I'm like, there's a reason for that.
That's a very small list.
That's not the achievement. That's more impressive if you take out WWE.
Exactly. Yeah, if you take out that, it actually is an achievement.
That's
if
like
you
I'm going to invent the Drumbally World Championship. I am the only man to ever hold the Drumbally World Championship.
Oh god. Well, how dare you besmirch former champions like the Road Dogg.
Right? He nearly within 3 seconds.
3 seconds
of winning it in the big time with the
3
Rock.
seconds against the Rock. That's all it would have taken. But yeah, so what's interesting about when Sting came to TNA, like, TNA really is his career maker, which is weird to think about in hindsight, but like, he had so many different aspects. He did like the Joker Sting, which was, you're aware of Joker Sting, are you?
Oh yeah. He's actually pulled it out once or twice in AEW.
Yeah, so the Joker Sting obviously was a reference to Heath Ledger's Joker. As you said, WWE and wrestling as a whole likes to steal from whatever's popular at the time.
just whatever it is.
So he's like, yeah, I can totally be the Joker. And he did the whole Joker thing, and he had like the crow, and it was hilarious. The main event,
Remember
Mafia?
in the 90s after the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton fiasco, like Vince could just not get this out of his system, and every pay-per-view he had like a Bill Clinton impersonator there and like a Monica Lewinsky impersonator there.
Oh, Vince. That's a whole other show in and of itself. But yeah, so the main event, Mafia, as well, was another like massive change for Sting. That's when he went like proper corporate, kind of doing what he did in WCW with the Millionaires Club, but like it actually working and being a long-term fixture of the show. And then he'd eventually start going into like a leadership kind of thing where like he would work backstage with the talent, and you know, he won the belt a bunch, but Sting didn't actually really ever need the belt. You know, like for me, the Sting matches that stick out are the matches that he had with like Kurt Angle, who also had his career run. Kurt Angle's career was made in TNA. I'm sorry, the same with AJ Styles. These lads were all there at the same time, and they were using the star power that they had from elsewhere to really, really build the company. The back of TNA was built on Christian Cage, AJ Styles, Jeff Jarrett, whether you like it or not, Sting, and Kurt Angle. That's who made TNA what it was.
There's like a legitimate golden era there where it was not just like ironically fun, like it was actually brilliant.
Yeah, it was, and it just kind of all like clicked. But I feel bad for Sting because like he never, like a lot of people haven't seen this. You know, that's why I'm saying if you're listening to this show, go out of your way. A lot of it's on YouTube. Everything we're going to talk about now is on YouTube for free, either uploaded and TNA don't care, or uploaded by TNA themselves.
Most of it like legitimately uploaded by TNA and like really good quality.
Yeah, and I mean like it's a shame that that's where it is, but it's also great that's where it is. So if you like, what I'm saying is you've all seen the WCW stuff. That's why we're kind of scaring of it. You've probably seen a lot of the AEW stuff, and you've definitely seen the WWE stuff, which we'll get to, but you haven't seen the TNA stuff, I guarantee. So we have 4 matches here, all of which are varied in their quality, right? So we're going to start with like probably, you want to start with the best or the worst?
Well, Darragh, knowing your taste in TNA, I don't know what the best and the worst refers, because it could very easily be one or the other.
That's fair. Okay, we'll go with the lowest of the low then. How about that, right? So
right. Okay.
The lowest of the low, which isn't either the best or the worst, it's just like the down point of TNA, and shows Sting's leadership role, is when he had the infamous match, and I use that term so loosely, the incident with Jeff Hardy and Sting from TNA's Victory Road 2011. So for anyone that doesn't know, this was the main event of an actual pay-per-view that people paid $60 for, $60 for. Oh. And it would lead to one of Sting's title reigns. However, Jeff Hardy was in no condition to compete. And not only like in he wasn't, he was injured. No, he was it's not that he wasn't ring ready or anything. No, he was just in a different planet of existence.
Yeah, he's like, so even when from the moment his music starts, firstly he takes ages to come out, but then when he does come out, like you can immediately tell he is either high, doped up, intoxicated, something. He comes down the aisle like he's shambling towards you, about to ask you for 20 cents for the bus. Like
that's exactly what it's like.
That's exactly
what it's like.
He does that shamble down the aisle. And right from the off, you're like, oh my god, this is not going to go well. And it doesn't even. Do you know what actually?
And it didn't go well. What's interesting about this is like, I remember watching this. Now I didn't watch it live. I watched it like a day after, and you're watching and you're like, okay, this could be a work shoot. Because the thing about TNA is a lot of things could have been a work shoot, right? But you're looking at Sting's face, you're like, he is genuinely annoyed. Like he is. I've never seen Sting like that, or at least not for a long time. Not in 10 years actually, because this would have been probably par for the course in WCW. But Eric Bischoff comes out again, WCW, right? He comes off and you're getting we used to call them WCW flashbacks when TNA flashbacks weren't the thing. And he's like, oh, we can't have this match, blah blah blah. It's not going to work. Just
he comes up with this really
convoluted mess.
He's like, oh, Sting, when you fought Jeff Hardy a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Hardy wasn't prepared.
Well, he's prepared now, yeah.
So now, and you can see in between doing this promo, he's putting the mic down and like talking to them with the mic away from his mouth. So he's obviously going, Sting, when you fought Jeff Hardy a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Hardy wasn't prepared. So we've decided to even up the playing field a little bit. Then he puts the mic down. He's like, Jeff Hardy is wired out of his skull. He's not fit to wrestle. You're going to punch me, and then you're just going to roll him up, okay? So Sting, what we've decided to do is to make this a hardcore match.
And then he's like saying to the referee, going, "You count three no matter what happens. You count three no matter what happens."
I don't care if he pins him by the ankles and his shoulders are in the rafters. You count three. And then he goes over to Jeff Hardy and he's like, "So Jeff, best of luck in the match tonight, now that you have the advantage." Then he puts the mic down. He's like, "He will roll you up, and if you kick out, I will send the entire crew out here to kick you to death in the middle of this ring."
So this actually happened in the Impact Zone. So it is a bit of history, but it is genuinely one of the saddest moments because Jeff Hardy gets beaten in about 2 minutes. He does actually try kicking out. The referee still counts, and Sting is just
he's so annoyed. So the match starts then after the whole thing with Bischoff, and Sting is like, "Right, I'm getting ready to I'm gonna hit I think he hits the Scorpion Death Drop. And then that's it, right?
Yeah.
But so he's trying to lock up with Jeff Hardy to hit the Death Drop. But Jeff Hardy decides, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my shirt off and I'm going to pretend to throw the shirt out to the crowd, right? So he has his shirt and he's like playing with the crowd, pretending to throw the shirt. And the crowd's all like, "Wait," jumping up for his shirt. And then he doesn't throw it. And then he goes to the other corner and he messes around with the crowd. This goes on for about 2 or 3 minutes of him walking around the ring, pretending to throw his shirt out to the crowd. And the whole time, Sting is just stalking him, like walking behind him in like lock up, man.
We have a job to do.
We need to rest.
The best and worst line is just before Sting turns around, he's like, "I know, I'm disappointed too." Oh my god.
But so eventually Jeff Hardy drops the t-shirt. Sting grabs him, does his death drop, pins him. Like you say, he very clearly tries to kick out, but you can see Sting, like, this is the most legitimate pin in
wrestling history. Yeah, it is. Sting is like, "You're not getting up. I don't care what you do."
He has his entire body weight on like the highest point of his chest, and he has his legs rolled up, and he's like, "There's no way in hell you're kicking out of this."
If you ever want to see what a real pin in wrestling looks like, just watch this match.
Legit. I know earlier you were saying how like, Sting looks so angry, and he does during the match when all this is happening. But see, when the bell rings, the camera just caught him, and it brought me right back to being like, like 15, and your dad catches you with a bottle of cider or something. He's so
I'm not angry and just disappointed.
Yeah, he's so angry with him during the match, but as soon as the bell rings and the match is over, Jeff Hardy's just like laying down in the corner, looking up, going, "What happened?" And Sting just looks at him like, "I'm so disappointed in you." I was looking at it like I didn't have anything to do with it, and I felt ashamed. I was watching it going, "Oh, damn, I'm so sorry."
I'm so sorry. But see, that's why like it's an interesting role for Sting, because he wasn't really this in WCW, but he was in TNA. He became like the locker room leader, and not like the Undertaker, who's like, "I miss carrying a gun around with me." More like, "I want to try and make it better."
Wrestling was better back in the days, but all the wrestlers used to die at 40. Real men back then. All these guys playing video games, living into their 80s.
But that's what, that's why it's so different, because like Sting and The Undertaker are always very similar in like people's perception of them. But it is so different, really, when you see how they approach. Like here, if Taker had him in that position, he just would have killed Jeff Hardy. That's just it. He would have thrown him out. That just would have been it. Like,
it would have been what do you call that guy who was sent out to the Royal Rumble and Guerrero and Benoit?
Daniel Pewter.
Yeah, it would have been a Daniel Pewter situation.
No, it absolutely would have been. But it's funny how, or not funny, haha, more like funny, interesting that like the approach of Sting was like, okay, with as little damage as possible to get this over with. While Taker would have been like, yep, you're going through 15 tables.
Yeah, Taker would have been, you're about to get the sloppiest, unsafest tombstone of your life.
It's like you don't get back up.
It's gonna scare the life out of you.
But we're gonna compare that with probably the best match we have on this card, and I mean best as in like objectively, and then we'll go with the actual best match. So objectively, the best match is the King of the Mountain.
I was still waiting to say if you'd say the other
one. No, I'm saving it. I'm not gonna like. I'm going to work up to it. So, objectively, the best match, and it's about half an hour. It's really, really good. It's from Slammiversary 2006. It's the inaugural King of the Mountain match, or I think it's the second King of the Mountain match. So, if anyone doesn't know, the King of the Mountain match is TNA's standard match, and I can't believe they haven't gone back to it. I hope they go back to it soon, because that would be awesome. Sorry, it was the third one, not the inaugural, because technically the first one happened on a weekly pay-per-view. It's the second match to happen at Slammiversary, so there you go. And it had Jeff Jarrett defeating Christian Cage, Abyss, Ron Truth Killings, who's also known as R-Truth, and Sting for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And this match, Martin, you've never seen a King of the Mountain match, ever.
I haven't. And I have to say that when it starts and they explain the rules, I had my head in my hands going, oh my God, this is a half hour long and it's going to be some dreadful, hokey TNA gimmicky nonsense.
No, that comes later.
Which comes later. But this is actually an excellent match. Now, the gimmick, it's basically, I mean, to be inelegant about it, it's a reverse ladder match. You have to climb the ladder and hang the belt on a hook and then you win. It sounds dumb, but you just said, the lineup of the match there, like this whole match is populated by excellent wrestlers, and they really go for it in this match. And this really surprised me how much I enjoyed this. Yeah, no, it's one of the things where like usually it's a bad sign, but it is a feature TNA where you have a graphic explaining the match, which is once you see that you're like, oh no. It's not so bad. It's when they have a graphic explaining the match and the text takes up the full of the screen.
Yes, like.
All right, hold on. I didn't know I had to bring pen and paper to this.
Yeah, like they're not really doing it yet, but they would do this on and off, and it's not as bad here because obviously you have Don West and JB's obviously announces it in the ring as well, but you have the professor in there. They're like, yeah, okay, we got this, and you're like, right, fair enough, but. When they're not there, or when it is even more convoluted, they will break out the pen and paper, and they're like, okay, wait, you got to pin them 6 times, do a run around the ring, flip backwards, and then with your left hand, count to 5, and then you can pin them. Okay, I get it, right? That makes sense.
It's actually, to be fair to TNA, it's not the worst example of this. Do you remember we did one of the WCW pay-per-views, and I can't even remember who was in it, but they had a match where you got like 1 point for hitting someone with a chair, 3 points for pinning someone, 5 points for putting someone through a table, like half a point for like a wrist lock, whatever, and you had to get the 12 points or whatever. That was legitimately, you had to sit watching that with a notepad.
But like, what's interesting about this is TNA, they haven't hit their down point yet. They're in that like great period. So the best TNA period is 2005 to 2007. That's when they're like the hottest. It's when they're doing all this innovative stuff. And this is like the biggest show of the year. It's not Bound for Glory. Now it has become Bound for Glory, but Slammiversary was always their show. It was always like the thing that you would know was TNA. So again, I wish they do the King of the Mountain match because you only got to see this once a year. Sting looks phenomenal. He looks better than he did in WCW. Like, he actually looks like the icon Sting here, and he puts in a hell of a performance.
Unbelievable. Like we were saying earlier, TNA got a reformed, revitalized Sting who, like, kind of, he's one of the few people, you know, he's up there with like the likes of Kenny Omega and the Bucks, who have made like a genuinely massively successful career without WWE. And
but also, sorry, stop you there. Christian Cage made his career here as well. Because remember, he's the champion. Here's the thing: he wouldn't be as over today if he was just doing his "Hi, I'm Christian," gimmick that he'd do in WWE.
Oh no, definitely not.
Like, revisiting the character that he developed here, he became what he is.
The guy who debuted in AEW that AEW made a huge deal out of was TNA Christian Cage. It wasn't Tag Team Christian from 15 years ago or whatever.
No, or even famed ECW champion Christian.
But I think the point was that Sting, when he took on with being in TNA and in the smaller company, and like you say, he took on that leadership role, I think he kind of took it as a personal mission to make it the product as a whole as good as it could be. So, like, yeah, you're right. He puts in an unbelievable performance here. He looks better than he's ever looked.
Yes.
Great match.
Absolutely. It's a must watch, and it actually is on TNA's own YouTube channel. So subscribe and watch it.
I tell you, and I know we're talking about Sting, but do you know who else got me in this?
R-Truth.
Ron Killings.
Yeah, isn't he phenomenal? God. Yeah, phenomenal.
Like, I get it, what he's doing now. Like, he's probably making more money now and not putting his body through any pain by doing, the goofy skits and the getting stuff wrong and the comedy and all that. And more power to him. Like, he'll have a longer career than anyone now because he's having no toll on his body. He's making more money doing all that. That's grand. But my God, he could go.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, apparently there was I remember a big story where he put it up to John Cena, apparently, in an airport. So that was
like he was gonna...
Like, he was gonna, like, batter him, like. And apparently that was like a thing that happened around this time. So Ron True Killings, R-Truth, really was like a legit TNA guy. But as you said, he's probably a lot happier now. I mean, but if you really wanted to see what he could do and why he was a former NWA champion, watch this match.
Like, he's legitimately incredible, and like the stuff he's pulling out in it would 100% like get over today.
Absolutely. So
the other thing about this match was two things. There was one thing I wanted to mention and one thing I wanted to ask.
Okay.
So, terrific ending. Referee Hebner gets involved, tips the ladder over, allowing Jeff Jarrett to climb up and claim the belt, put the belt on the hook. But the heat this gets from the crowd is unreal.
Oh yeah.
They start lobbing like bottles and rubbish and like whatever they have to hand. They start pelting it into the ring. So like when you get like a genuine reaction from a crowd, like that's awesome. So I really enjoyed that. But the other thing was, maybe you can explain this. It's probably something in storyline. At the end of the match, Jim Cornette comes out and takes the belt off Jeff Jarrett. Are you aware of what's going on there or what the storyline is?
Yeah, so Jeff Jarrett was the authority figure, and he didn't like Jim Cornette was the authority figure, and he didn't like Jeff Jarrett. So he'd just periodically come out and take the belt off Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff Jarrett had to win.
So he legitimately stripped him of the belt.
Yeah, he would just do it every now and then. But the thing about it is, Jeff Jarrett would always win. So,
I love that. Jeff's getting up, put his trousers on in the morning. Jim Cornette pops out and goes, "Nope,
take it out. You'll have to win it. You have to win it. You have to win that belt in a 2-hour 3-fall casket match."
Yeah, take your shoelaces off and tie them together if you want to keep your trousers up, but you're not doing it with this belt.
So it's funny, right? So the next match, it's like It's actually pretty good. Probably the second best match, like objectively. But we're actually going along on a timeline. So that was earlier. 2 years later, it's the first ever prison yards match with Abyss versus Sting. Now, what's interesting is Abyss and Sting would feud for most of 2007, and they'd have like a bunch of these weird matches that didn't really make a whole mess of sense, But Abyss would bring out the more violent part of Sting. Sting was never really this aggressive, this hardcore, but he's wearing a cool mask like Sting during this, and I actually forgot. Sorry, Sting was wearing this mask like Abyss, which I forgot about. And it is kind of goofy. Like they have like at some parts are like properly, this is like a cool wrestling backstage thing, but then they have like a fake wall, which is just someone drew a wall. You're like, oh, okay, this is pretty bad. But for what it is, this match, why I like it is it shows Sting doing the hardcore garbage wrestling stuff in a way that, when Undertaker had his run as the hardcore champion?
Yeah.
Very much the same way.
Yeah. What I liked about this is that when a lot of guys who that isn't their style, when they do it, they're so delicate about it. Like you can see, like they really hold back.
But he's in there with Abyss, and Abyss is bumping for him like an absolute champion.
Do you ever see Hulk Hogan when he's swinging a chair?
Oh, it's the worst.
Tipping guys on the head. But what I like about this is that this isn't Sting's style.
No.
When the bell got on, like we say, it was like we were talking about earlier, he's going to make this company a success, and he's going to make that his personal responsibility. So when the bell goes, he goes for this. Like he throws his whole body into this. He doesn't hold anything back. When he has to gig, he gigs. Like he busts himself open.
There's a nasty spot in it where he breaks one of the little lights, where Abyss breaks one of the lights over his head, and it like legit just smashes on his head, and he bleeds everywhere. You're like, man, what a shot! Like what an image! It's really good, really good.
Not afraid to bleed.
No.
No, and made it look legit and cool. Like you said, look, there's goofy stuff in the match. There's the fake wall. There's a bit at the start where he throws him on a table. For some reason, the table has wheels. And the commentators are pretending it doesn't, because he's like, Abyss is dragging Sting around on that table. I was like, nah, man, the table has wheels. He's not.
There's a goofy part in the match, but I actually kind of like it. It's near the end. It's like the last sequence where there's a table set up in the ring, and Abyss is climbing the cage for some reason, which they don't really explain. And Sting runs over, grabs like barbed wire, like a barbed wire board, puts it on top of the table, and then power bombs Abyss. Now it's a cool spot and looks great in Abyss. Obviously,
awesome.
It is awesome, but you're also like, oh, that's a bit ham-fisted there, But still, it's really good.
I think there was just a bit of miscommunication there. I think what was supposed to happen was Sting was supposed to be on the table, and the reason Abyss was climbing the cage was because he's going to climb on top of it and jump off on the Sting through the table. I think that's what the idea was, but whatever happened in the execution, it got a bit messed up, and it looked a bit contrived. But you forget all that. Whenever he gets power bombed through the barbed wire table, like you instantly forgive all that.
It's class because the barbed wire table is not really something I've seen anywhere else that isn't TNA. So it is pretty cool. The ending of the match, Father James Mitchell is in there bleeding everywhere for some reason. Which is funny. He just shows up in random spots even today and just bleeds.
There's bound to be a priest somewhere in Ireland called Father James Mitchell.
Maybe it's him. Maybe it's just his like side gig.
We should get him on the show.
Do you know who you have the same name as?
We shouldn't even tell him. We should get him on the show and just not tell him why. Just be like, we're here we should do like a This Is Your Life of Father James Mitchell. And go through Father James Mitchell and be like, oh, lads, I think you might have the wrong. Now, Father, would you stop? Tell us what TNA was like.
But listen, this match ended in kind of a contrived way. There was a cell in the ring, and you had to throw them into the cell. So powerbound them, then throw them in the cell, and then lock it, and that was it. So Sting would win. And guys, we are going to leave it there because we have to take a break here and then go on to the podcast.
What a cliffhanger.
I know, right?
Right there, right before we talk about not only the best TNA match. Not only Darragh's favorite TNA match, Darragh's favorite match ever. Period. What a cliffhanger!
Like, seriously, folks, if you don't know the one we're going to talk about, it's incredible. It's totally worth your time. So if we haven't enticed you enough, please go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com, the True Penny channel, or thewrestlingrewind.com, where you can get all of our shows for free. They're up there. Our social media is now actually active and doing things thanks to the efforts of Martin. And yeah, we're going to be posting a lot more content there from the archives. We have a Patreon as well. Go over and sign up to the Rennet tier, which is tenor spelled backwards. And Martin, is there anything else you want to plug before we jump over to the podcast?
Lads, get on the podcast, and I'll give you a wee clue. In nomine Padre, e Filio, e Spiritu Sancto.
The deathbed. The deathbed cometh. And with that, folks, we'll see you next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM.
You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 PM to 6 PM, and then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media radio network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Alright, everybody. That was a botch. That was a fucking Sin Cara botch. You were watching with some Sin Cara, weren't you?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I saw some of that. The different variations and the I was actually really impressed when he would jump into the ring until I found out that there's a wee trampoline there.
And that they always recorded it twice.
Yeah.
Alright, here we go. Alright, folks, welcome back. We are here on the WrestlingRewind.com and, of course, nerdtoknowmedia.com, the True Penny channel, and all the other places on the internet where this show ends up. Because, you know, it's funny. I was looking at like the feed the other day, and it's just like random places that I didn't put it. So it's like this podcast and this podcast area. I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't know. People listen to it in random places. So wherever you're checking us out,
I do a version after we put the show out. I do a re-recording of it that I put up on Pornhub.
Well, there you go. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
So, look.
You like wrestling and feet? I get it. Got to get on our Pornhub stream.
They're not related. They're just, it's still the same show. But...
It's just me with my shoes off watching the watching the podcast.
But listen, Martin, we've enticed the audience too much. We've teased them too much.
And then immediately turned them off with that.
Yes. Do you know what the greatest wrestling match of all time is?
I do, and even though I know, I still can't believe you're about to say it. But and by the way, folks, he genuinely means this. This is not a bit. No, it's not a bit.
I sent Martin an overview of Sting's career, and I was like, guess which one's the best one? He's like, I knew it was going to be that one. I just knew it was going to be. So let me take you back, because again, we have access to a time machine, to 2007, March 11th, in Orlando, Florida, the Impact Zone. First You Must Die in Order to Live, Destination X. We have a feud which has been going on for some time between Sting and the Monster Abyss in the one, the only Last Rites match.
Yeah.
For if anyone doesn't know what this is, it's not exactly a casket match. It's not exactly a Muppet. It's a Last Rites match. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mix between a casket match and a shark cage match.
Yeah, but
a little bit, yeah.
If you bought it, you know, in the hardware stores at Halloween when they're selling like the stuff for Halloween, like the skeletons and the candlestick holder and stuff. Imagine that, but like that's what they actually bought. So the entire ring is just covered with like.
Oh, they spent anywhere between 20 to €25 at Spirit Halloween store.
Oh, absolutely. So So they have okay. So in WWE, they'll have like, proper tombstones, and they'll have like, a proper like funeral parlor, because Paul Bearer literally had a funeral parlor, so it was easy to do. TNA's answer to that is, we're going to cover the ring with random plastic tombstones.
Send an intern down to the shopping centre with €25.
Here's the ironic thing. They're actually at a movie studios. They probably could have asked someone in Orlando, like in Universal Studios, been like, lads, listen, do you have some? Because you know what Universal's famous for? The Universal Horror Nights.
Oh.
But no, they didn't do that. They went to Spirit Halloween, got some candlesticks, put them around, like just on the turnbuckle, and had some random tombstones. And basically every time they whip into the ropes, they just wiggle just a little bit. I think it's wonderful. It's just so shoddily done. The rules. You go through the rules first, and then we'll. So the rules of this basically state that you have to be bleeding, and then the deathbed has to be summoned. I don't think you have the pin, right? So you'd have to bleed first, and then
the deathbed. No one has ever died without bleeding.
No, so you don't have to pin them. You just have to bleed, and then the referee will summon the deathbed. Right? That's so stupid. So the deathbed is literally a casket. I don't know why they don't call it like a coffin or a casket. They specifically call it the deathbed, right? And it's this like casket that's just coming down super slowly.
Oh my god!
Insanely slowly from the rafters, right? So it's just dropping down.
It is. It's the intern who was sent to Spirit Store. He's up there in the rafters, and all he has is like a wee hand crank.
And he's like,
winds it up and down.
So periodically, like this thing is going down super slow, right? They just shoot it with dry ice, and then the lights change into this like blue mess. So you can't really see what's going on in the match because it is just blue and smoke. But Sting is sitting there and he's bleeding everywhere. Abyss is like, I have this one. And the match is just, it's peak TNA. Like, people are like, oh, it's terrible. It's not. This is what wrestling is, Martin. This is wrestling.
It's actually not terrible.
No, I think it's great. Like, genuinely.
And not just because it's like a ridiculous gimmick TNA last rites match in which a coffin is lowered from the
deathbed.
Deathbed, sorry. Yeah, I suppose I think it's because it's on a platform. I don't know if that's what makes it a bed or
so it's important to remember how you win the matches. You have to be bleeding, and then you have to put them in the coffin and close the cask or the deathbed.
But your deathbed is what you die. You wouldn't be in the like you're still alive when you get into your deathbed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if your deathbed is a coffin, you were very pessimistic.
You're just like
about your chances of survival.
Going to end up here anyway. Just
no, I'll save everybody the bother. I'll just get in now.
So Sting eventually does fight his way back, and Abyss kind of loses this match for himself because he struggles to carry this really, really heavy tombstone, which isn't heavy. It's a plastic tombstone, but he pretends like it's really heavy. And that's actually what causes Sting to actually get the upper hand.
Yeah, but Sting is at fault here. Because Abyss, when he does the thing where he's making the tombstone look like it's really heavy, he does a great job of it.
He does, absolutely.
When he lifts it, it looks like a big slab of concrete. Like he does a whole bump and thudding it down. The problem is that then he gets into the ring and Sting lifts it like he's jauntily picking up his umbrella before heading out into the rain. Like Sting's swinging the thing around like there's nothing to it.
My favorite part of this match is basically after that moment, it's a couple of seconds afterwards, he puts Abyss into it, right? And Abyss like moves the bedding out of the way. But like, just so he can get into it comfortably, I'm like, oh lads,
it's your deathbed. You're going to be in there a long time. You know.
I know, but it's just like, come on, what are you doing? I just love the fact that like they all sat around and like, oh, this is gonna be amazing, guys. We're gonna have the best match ever. And the worst thing about it is there's some serious bumps in it. Like that choke slam onto the casket looked like it hurt like hell.
Yeah, and it actually looks great. Like it smashes the lid of the coffin in, and it's pretty cool. The problem is that it's like the goofier stuff kind of lets down the legitimately dangerous and painful stuff. So like earlier you were talking about the candles. So one of my favorite parts of the match was what you talked about, the candles. So there's these candlesticks on each of the turnbuckles. And like Darragh was saying, every time someone gets thrown into the turnbuckle, they wobble because they're made out of plastic. Abyss rips one off at one stage and hits Sting with it, and Sting's busted open. Oh, he was hit in the face, and he's bleeding everywhere. Like he's not, because it's plastic. But the best part is that they use the correct terminology for these candlesticks. They keep calling them candelabras. Oh no, Abyss has got the candelabra. No, Sting, don't do it. It's not worth it. Put the candelabra down. And the whole time, they're like threateningly swinging these candelabras around. For anyone who doesn't know, a candelabra is one of the candlesticks that has three candles. So it's like a pronged. There's 3 bits to it coming up. Sting's got the candelabra, but the whole time they're doing this, and I'm looking at the candelabra, all I can think of is the singing candelabra from Beauty and the Beast.
Lumiere.
Yeah. It's like, this is the most. So I'm thinking of Beauty and the Beast. The announcers are screaming about the candelabra, and all I can think of is what do you call your band who did the film Behind the Candelabra? Or
I have no idea.
I don't know, whatever it is. But I'm sitting there going, this is the least threatening thing ever.
But the whole thing, that's what I'm saying. Like the whole thing is really like, it's undone by its gimmick, right? So the end of it comes where they do this spot where they set up like a table made of chairs and a tombstone for reasons. And Abyss ends up in the deathbed, right? But the thing about it is, when you see a casket match, normally they have it off to the side of the ring so the camera doesn't get it. You know, like,
yeah,
you can hide an awful lot based on placement, which is why I think WB never put the casket in the ring, because it looks really stupid. So if you're watching Abyss,
because it takes up all the room in the bloody ring.
But also you can see them like angling themselves into it. You know, a lot of this match is Abyss, you know, sorting himself out to get into the casket, right? And the end of it comes where Abyss is just there. He's been beaten and he's put in. And Abyss is just, Sting is just lying on top of it, bleeding everywhere. And out of nowhere, the referee then just does the up symbol, you know, and the deathbed rises with Sting and Abyss in it. And Mike Tenay is just screaming, the deathbed is rising. What is going on here? And I'm just like, this is wonderful. This is exactly what wrestling should be.
Again, the intern is up in the rafters with the hand crank, doing his best. It's not his fault. But Mike Tenay is screaming, the deathbed is rising. It's rising. Oh my God, the deathbed is rising. The deathbed is rising. And at this stage, the deathbed is between 6 and 8 inches off the ground.
It's enough to get Sting, so Sting can comfortably jump off it and like just look at it.
Like, it's so slow. I think at one stage Sting was meant to do like an Undertaker type sort of raising his arms as the deathbed raises, but it raises so slowly that he goes to put up his arms and then he just puts them down because he's like, well, I'm not going to stand here for 12 minutes with my arms up while the deathbed raises.
So you know what we missed out on, unfortunately?
What?
Sting, Undertaker, last rights match.
Yes. Well, I mean, we'll get into it when we do WWE because we missed out on the Sting Undertaker match in general.
I know, but I mean, yes, imagine how wonderful that would have been. Don't change anything. The exact same. Don't change anything.
Have you ever seen a show called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
No.
It's actually amazing. So anyone out there listening, go look up Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. It's incredible, but it's kind of a deliberately terrible TV show, and there's a scene in it in a graveyard, and this must be deliberate because it's filmed in a real graveyard, but they've made it look like a fake graveyard because it's supposed to be a terrible TV show. So they're at a funeral in this fake graveyard, and all you can see in the background is the headstones kind of wobbling in the wind, like bouncing back and forth in the breeze. And that's what I was thinking of when I was watching them swing around the headstones in this.
And the candelabras.
And the candelabras. Oh my God.
Look, it's just, to me, that just encapsulates TNA in a nutshell, right? It's just one of those things where it's like the wheels are starting to fall off. The rest of the card actually is very good. We might even cover Destination X at some point, but to put this into perspective, here's some of the other matches that were on that card, right? A ghetto brawl, a double bull rope match, a cross-face chicken wing match, tag team match, 2 out 3 falls match for the X Division Championship, which was actually really good. Elevation X match with Rhino, who was afraid of heights.
He would have been perfectly safe on the deathbed.
So yeah, they were some of the matches. So TNA around this point, it's so wonderful.
It's starting to sound suspiciously like. Do you remember the Christmas one we did a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
A Christmas cage match, a reindeer on a North Pole match, a silent night, violent night match.
We need more gimmick matches.
A gimmick match. All the gimmicks in history, all at once. On a pole.
So yeah. So Sting obviously would stay in TNA for a very long time. Honestly, like it wasn't until like the depths of TNA's proper fall where he was like, nah, look, I'm kind of done here, and he would then just kind of hang out for a little while. And nobody actually believed that this would happen, except for me, Martin. Now, you weren't on the show at the time. Maybe long-term listeners remember that for years, for a good 4 years.
Was this your Punk will return of the time?
Of the time. This is true. Exactly, yeah. It's just, it was a lot shorter time period with Punk coming back. I didn't expect to be right immediately. But with this, I was running a campaign called Bring Sting to the WWE and Get him to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania campaign. I never really got a better name than that.
It's catchy.
It's catchy. It works. But I was proven right when in 2014 he would randomly show up at San Diego Comic-Con and then debut at Survivor Series. Now, we call this his WWE stint because, it wasn't very long.
And it caused him a stint in the hospital.
And it caused him, that was Seth Rollins. I mean, all full blame has to go to Seth Rollins there. And I'm not even joking. I mean, buckle bomb is dangerous, particularly on an elderly man. I don't know why he thought that was a good idea, but obviously wasn't. It would yield a couple of things. One, we'd have Sting in the WWE, which nobody except me thought would happen, right? So I'm going to list the good things.
Yeah.
He showed up in the WWE Hall of Fame, which was incredible. I mean, well earned. Not so much for his WWE, but more for, WCW, right?
Well, I mean, at this stage, they owned WCW.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it made sense. It genuinely made sense. And, he'd have a match at WrestleMania, which, again, no one ever thought that would happen, except me. But it did.
No, even if it wasn't great, it's an awesome bucket list thing.
Exactly, yeah. Look, it wasn't going to be great. Like, his best years were behind him. This was 7 years after the deathbed match. And, man, once you've been on the deathbed...
peak of the career.
The peak of the career. It's all downhill from here. So, look, he was getting on. I do think the match that he had where it became DX versus the NWO still made no sense. I mean, for anyone who watched WCW, that made no sense. If it had been the Wolfpack versus DX, that actually would have made a lot of sense. But having Hogan show up,
it didn't
make any sense.
My biggest issue with his WWE run. And most people's issue with it is all anybody wanted was Sting versus The Undertaker. That's all anybody wanted. And instead they did the stupid thing with Triple H. And like, I get the anger over that. But my biggest issue with it is that they used it to retread the whole WWE versus WCW stuff. And I'm sitting watching it going, firstly, you are WCW now. You own WCW. But also, that was 13 years ago. And Sting has been wrestling in TNA for 11 years. Like, he's in a TNA, let me think, 88, 98.
He was in TNA longer than he was in WCW.
If not longer, pretty much the same amount of time. But it's been over a decade, and he's been, like, Sting hasn't, for the past 13 years, been at home ruminating on the loss to WWF and the death of WCW. Like, he moved on. He became the WWA champion, and then he became like a TNA mainstay for over a decade, like 13 years, something like that. But as soon as
he was like, one day I'm going to do this feud that makes no sense and contradicts everything that I've done in WCW.
It's like, imagine you do one daft thing in your life, right? One time you pee your pants in school in the lunch hall, right?
Right.
But then you go on to have a successful career, you build up your own company, and then you sell that company and you use the profits to like start a non-profit charity, and your charity develops like a vaccine that saves millions of lives in like impoverished countries, and then you come back home and people are like, oh, there's your man pissed his pants. like get over the WCW thing.
They can't. And it's a sad part. It's a sad thing because the way, I'll put it this way, if WWE was run then the way it is now, I think it would have been very different. WWE
I don't know. It was
no, the reason
Triple H was.
Yeah, but Triple H wasn't booking it. Remember, nothing existed after WCW to Vince.
No,
there was WCW, and that's it. So they couldn't pull, in their defense, and I'm not defending it because I mean I'm the biggest critic of it, but in their defense, the time from his debut to that WrestleMania match was incredibly short. It's very similar, to put it in perspective, folks. If you're listening to this now in 2024, it's the equivalent to when Punk came back. You know, he came back, oh, WrestleMania, bang, and he put him into a program. Now, luckily, a lot of people legitimately hate CM Punk, so they had a lot to actually work on. With Sting, they had nothing. I mean, they couldn't talk about his career in WWA, his lauded career in WWA.
World champion of the World Wrestling Association. Like, come on.
All-Stars, World Wrestling All-Stars.
Well, he's the only man to hold the WWA, NWA, WCW, and TNA titles.
But they couldn't say that because they didn't own the NWA, TNA, or WWA title. And that's the problem. Like, they had all these... They didn't have anything to pull from. The only thing they had, and they didn't have time to build up another story. But what was crazy about it is, and this is why I think they really should have went for it, with Taker there, I don't think he was doing anything at that point. I don't know who he faced at that WrestleMania. It was probably... Who did he face at that WrestleMania? Do you know?
You talk and I'll look it up. What was
2014, or 2015 WrestleMania.
I'll look it up.
Was it 31? Let's see. Hold on, I have it here. It was Brock Lesnar.
Oh, was that when he lost?
That's when he lost. Oh, Bray Wyatt. Sorry, it was Bray Wyatt. 2015. Yeah, look, as much as I like Bray, I think a match with Sting would have been a lot, or even better. Again, rebooking that in hindsight, having the trade him involved would have been amazing. Actually, would have made Bray. Rebooking that,
the three spooky characters.
Yeah, rebooking that with hindsight being 2020, Bray Wyatt beating The Undertaker and Sting. You would have made Bray a megastar then, and nothing would have been able to actually undo him. That's what they should have done. Give the streak to Bray Wyatt.
Kind of would have made sense that the streak went to another kind of supernatural, spooky character.
Yeah, well, let's put it in perspective. The guy who broke the streak will never be talked of again in the WWE. The streak is intact again, technically.
Oh, yeah. In terms of being retconned. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, what is it? What's the Royal Rumble that nobody won?
There's now there's 3 Royal Rumbles that nobody won. 4 Royal Rumbles that nobody ever won.
Was it 2004 when Benoit won?
Yeah, and then there's 1999 when Vince won it. And then I think Brock Lesnar won it twice, right?
Yeah.
So technically there's 4 Royal Rumbles that don't have a winner.
It's straight. Maybe will they go with it? Will they just ignore them, or will they go with like whoever came second?
I don't know. It's bizarre, but look, it's a problem that in hindsight they should have done that. You know, Bray Wyatt, he would have been made a megastar then, and he already kind of was. But like, think of the rub he would have got against Sting and The Undertaker, and that feud was ready made. Whereas like Sting and The Undertaker could have even teamed up against the evil of Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt could have been,
I think Wyatt might legitimately be the most fumbled wrestler ever. Because anyone can fumble a character, fumble a guy, fumble maybe a period of time when they were hot. But they had like 3 chances with Wyatt, where like 3 different characters, and each of them were really hot, and each of them had like lengthy time periods where they were way over, and every time they got it wrong.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe we'll look into that coming up to WrestleMania, because he probably is going to be in the Hall of Fame this year. I pretty much guarantee it.
Wow, that's nice.
But yeah, man, it's looking back at this, you're like, okay, having the match with Triple H, while it was cool to see Triple H winning, don't know why. Triple H didn't win. Did Sting win?
No,
Triple H did win.
Yeah.
Triple H did win. And I don't really know why he won. It still doesn't make.
Was this during the LOL Triple H wins?
No. This was well after that. But I think
you do know it was 14 years later, and Vince still could not let go of the 83 weeks when WCW beat them in the ratings.
That's probably true.
So he's going to punish Sting for this 13 years later, rather than put on the like once in a generation program and match that the fans want to see.
And again, like it's kind of sad that like we didn't have Triple H booking at the time, or even Shawn Michaels, or literally anybody. Tony Khan booking this in 2015 I would have taken, because everyone knew what the call was, and even if it had been against Triple H, you could have handled that a lot better. But Taker and Sting was the right call. But even looking at it now in hindsight, Taker, Sting, Bray Wyatt, they should have known. Sting having a match with Bray Wyatt would have been really cool.
And even like you say, even at this stage, Sting is getting on a bit. So a triple threat would have maybe given him a wee bit more space. We would have.
And here's the thing: they didn't have to. The thing about those matches, I won't spend too long on it. But the thing about those 3 in the ring, with the exception of Taker, because Taker wasn't fully broken down yet, none of them had to actually do anything. They could have just done spoopy nonsense.
Oh yeah,
for 10 minutes, and it would have been incredible. Like, none of them had to actually take any bumps. That's what it was like.
The only thing they had to do was put the match on later than they actually put the match on, because they put the spooky Undertaker Bray Wyatt match on in the middle of the day, the sun beaming down on them. Like, no, these are creatures of the night.
Yeah, like that's the thing. That WrestleMania was so bizarre in a lot of ways, but it does stand in. It's just like, you did not think this through. And again, I think it's because those WrestleManias are like 15 hours long or something. They're like, we gotta get through it. Come on. So there's a lot to be said for a 2-night WrestleMania thing. And again, like, it's a shame that we don't have this happening now, where it would be given time to breed, ego would be put aside, and it's like, right, what do people actually want? We just didn't get it. But I think the real sad part here is, talking about Con, is it would lead to Sting's first retirement, because he'd have his first and only title shot at the WWE strap, and it would be at Night of Champions. I remember when that was announced, I'm like, that's weird. That's probably going to go bad. And it did. Seth Rollins delivered a buckle bomb and nearly crippled Sting, legitimately.
Yeah. And if you listen to any of the things on a couple of interviews and a couple of documentaries where he talks about that match, and he really does feel like, he says when it happens, he's like, oh, I know this is wrong. Like, my career's over, maybe my life's over. Yeah. He's such a damn pro that he finishes the match. Like, anyone else would have just been like, I call this, I'm done, you know?
Yeah, but he finished it. He finished it. It was, oh man, it's so upsetting. It really is that happened. And I think, like a lot of people, I was devastated that would be it for Sting, you know. But we'd get a lease on life, or Sting would, and as wrestling fans, we get a lease on life on Sting's career with AEW. So obviously he was tied to a Legends contract in WWE for a while. Obviously WWE looked after him really, really well. He was in the 2K games for years, and then all of a sudden his merch gets pulled. And we're like, what's going on here? And he'd make a surprise appearance at AEW. Now, Sting, again, like a lot of AEW fans, a lot of people who watch AEW now are probably younger, didn't watch WCW, they definitely didn't watch TNA. And Sting still showed up. So it showed you that even still, his lackluster WWE run, he still had enough juice. Just being Sting, just being a character Sting, he was able to come in and be a game changer for AEW. A legitimate big signing. I know some people are like, oh, whatever. No, he was. Like, AEW needed a Sting. They got a Sting. They got the Sting. And I think pairing him up with Darby Allin was probably the best thing to do. Because one, Darby Allin will take all crazy bumps for no reason.
Oh, I dread to think what he's going to do on Sunday.
No, that's what I'm saying. He will take all these bumps. So Sting didn't have to. Sting was able to go back into really just being that presence, you know. Having him win the belts was interesting, and now gearing up to his final match. Now, the question I have here is, for you, Martin, as the AEW fan, what were the highlights of this run for Sting, and what do you wish he maybe did differently, or what would you like to have seen?
Okay, so great question, because it lets me get into the rant that I've just been holding myself back on. So, highlights. Firstly, his debut. A lot of people talk about like Sting showing up, how it was this amazing surprise, how it was a big sign and blah blah. The most impressive thing about Sting's debut was that it was mid-pandemic. So when he showed up at that arena, it wasn't an empty arena, but it was when they were just starting to let people back in, but it was strictly limited. Like, everybody had to be 6 feet apart. So it meant you had an arena that could maybe hold 10,000 people that might have only had 600 or 800 in it. So it's during the pandemic, it's during the social distancing and all that. That Sting graphic comes up out of nowhere, and those 800 people in that crowd sound like 10,000. Like, they go off. They are absolutely losing their minds. And it brought the best out of everyone. So the presentation was amazing. The surprise was incredible. The pop was huge. But it even made JR, and like, JR gets a lot of shtick for, you know, not being as good as he used to be. But his call in this, like, this is one of the last times I remember a JR call really like making a moment. The other way JR called used to make a moment when he shouted them. And he's like, Sting's back. Look at this crowd. They've lost their minds. Nobody's forgotten. Just incredible call. So Sting's debut was brilliant. But when
what's interesting about that is it's like nobody's forgotten. Nobody remembered.
I know. I think AEW crowds are a wee bit more clued in. I think they're largely kind of millennial, and they're more wrestling than WWE fans. So I
have breaking news.
Oh no! What? Who's dead?
No. So we have a correction to make. So, quote, this comes from the Bleacher Report. Sting tells Bleacher Report that Crow Sting wasn't influenced by the movie The Crow. Quote, I suppose possibly the Crow character may have had some influence, But that was nothing I ever really thought about. Until somebody said, "Hey, he's Crow Sting," and I went, "Okay, I see it." But I saw the movie, and I think I don't think. Sorry, I I see it. I saw the movie. I don't think I've seen the whole movie from beginning to end. I've just seen bits and pieces here here and there over the years. But I remember when it first came out. When I was developing this Crow character, I wasn't thinking about the movie at all. I was thinking about Kiss. I was thinking about the Rocky Horror. I was thinking about Batman and other things that have influenced me over the years. I don't buy it. I don't buy that.
It's a total coincidence that I look exactly like the character from the. Just keep reading it. Does you go further down? The Joker character? No, I've never seen The Dark Knight.
What? Who's the Joker?
I don't know why you're talking. Surfer Sting? I have never surfed in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
I will not stand for this slander.
To be fair to him, I think he had the Sting name before the musician Sting.
That's true.
I think Sting, the wrestler, actually has the copyright on the name.
Really?
Yeah, because Sting, the musician, kind of uses the name more casually.
Right.
Like it's sort of just how he's known rather than. But I think Sting has the copyright on it, but obviously he's sound about it and he doesn't mind your man using it.
So there you go. Sorry, I had to. Once I saw that, I was like, "Oh, we have to correct ourselves. This is too funny."
Oh yeah, that's correct. So the Crow character has nothing to do with the Crow. He just looks like line for line, like each swish of makeup is line for line like the Crow. I love that he's like, I never saw the whole movie. You're like, but did you see it up to the point where the Crow appears?
I seen bits of it. You know, the bit where Brandon Lee shows up in that. Yeah, that's the only bits I saw.
I've seen bits of it. Yeah, all the bits with the Crow. So
funny.
Sting does his big debut. That's a moment, right? But I was like a lot of people thinking, "Oh, awesome, Sting's here," but he's going to be, like not a manager, but he'll be like a menacing on-screen character. He might swing the bat a few times. He'll punch people, but he's not going to be wrestling.
Mm.
And then he does a couple of promos, does a couple of teases a couple of fights with people, but he gets in the ring one day with Brian Cage, and he's having this back and forth with Brian Cage, and Brian Cage boots him in the stomach, lifts him up, and fully, and I mean fully, power bombs him in the middle of the ring. And Sting's whole issue is his neck and his back and that, and you're looking at him, you're expecting him to shatter like a Fabergé egg when he hits the canvas.
Hmm.
But that was the moment where, oh my God, he's gonna wrestle. He's actually gonna wrestle. So that was a huge moment. His first match was a cinematic match, but they were kind of the norm during the pandemic.
They were.
So it was really cool. It was like all shot in black and white, and they did a lot of they used the cinematic thing really cleverly. They did a lot of really cool stunts with it. They had they've kept Sting really cool without having him to do like a load of huge bumps. Like there's one thing where him and Darby Allin are like at opposite ends of this huge warehouse, and Darby Allin just fires Sting's bat, and Sting like catches it one-handed. They're keeping him really cool without having to have him like land on his neck. So that was another moment. But I think one of the biggest ones for me was we're post-pandemic. We're back in the live shows. Sting is going to wrestle now in front of a live crowd. It's not a cinematic match. He's fully going to wrestle in front of a live crowd. And everybody's talking about, oh yeah, he'll be really protected. He'll be taken care of. He'd probably do a few punches and kicks and then, disappear off the side and blah, blah, blah. No, Sting climbs up on top of the ring entrance, leaps an incredible leaps off it onto a group of guys, and just does this insane match. He's getting slammed. He's getting put through tables. Like we've seen him be double powerbombed through tables. We've seen Sammy Guevara come off the top rope and outside the ring and crush him. Like Sting's a legend. And you know how legends get handled. They come in and they're like, show up the new guys and they throw a few punches and blah, blah, blah. No. This, in a long and storied career, this AEW run has legitimately been one of the best.
Absolutely. It really has. And it's a whole different run. I mean, it's kind of like, I think if things had been different, the way I see Sting's AEW run is, if Taker had have stepped back and maybe done the ministry Taker again, where he's mentoring someone younger, that's probably what we would have saw. But because obviously they were totally different, they did completely different things. I think Sting is a little bit younger than Taker as well.
Sting is, I still can't believe this, because he's going to have an insane match in 24, 48 hours. Yeah. Sting is 64.
Yeah.
The Undertaker's 58.
Wow. Okay, so Sting's older than
6 years on him.
Wow. Well, here's the thing again.
He's still wrestling.
The thing about it is, Sting's career has been more spread out. He's worked the safer style. He's worked a lesser schedule as well. I know Undertaker's maybe worked one match a year for a couple of years, but Sting has been smart about it. You know, he's still there. I want to go.
By Jesus.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I'm going to go on record. Going to make a wild prediction here, Martin.
Oh, there we go.
We will see Sting versus The Undertaker at some point. Guarantee you. It will happen. It will happen.
In heaven.
No. Dude, don't say that. That's so dark. No, I do think we will see it. I think once this AEW thing is done with Sting, he'll go off into the sunset. You know, the call will go out at some point. Sting, Undertaker, WrestleMania, some point. It will happen. I mean, money talks. Dump truck full of money. Hey, Stinger, one more time. But like, all right, well, I need another boat.
Well, actually, I don't know if money would have the effect on him, because this is another little known thing about Sting. He's actually one of the most well-off wrestlers. Not because of like his massive paychecks, or although he was undoubtedly the icon, he was well paid, but apparently he's like a really, really savvy investor. And whenever he gave up the drink and gave up the drugs and went Christian, he also got really into investing. So like a lot of guys were getting paid big money and spending big money. Apparently Sting like invested everything really wisely, and he's loaded. So it kind of shows the love he has for the game. That he's 64 years old, he's loaded, and he's still going out there taking massive bumps.
I still think he'll do it.
I tell you what, I'll make it
because here's the thing: he has gone on record and said that it's the one thing that eats away at him.
I don't see it, but I've been wrong about these things before.
That's fair. As I said, there's just, if you're looking at a career, and we've gone through Sting's career quite well, if I don't say so myself.
I think we did pretty good.
But there's one glaring omission. Glaring omission.
There is, but I think sometimes time and life mean, unfortunately, glaring omissions just have to stand.
I would never say never until one of them's in the ground, and even then, we've already seen the deathbed rise once.
Well, here's my prediction. I think this will be his last match. I don't think it's the last time we'll see him. So
that's what I'm saying. I don't think if Sting and Taker go in a match, right? I don't think it will be a match, because that's probably not going to happen. But it will be something. I think those two will, because they've never even stood in the same ring as those characters. I think that's what will happen. Look, he's done everything he can in AEW, right? He's probably either going to go out on his back or he's going to go out with the belts. I don't know which one. It doesn't really matter at this point. But what I would say, WWE will make a call. They'll be like, look, what do you want to do this? They'll do it, and it will just be one of those moments. Just to have, because again, what have we said about Undertaker's career? Undertaker's career is a series of moments edited very well. Sting is legitimately great in the ring. Taker, fortunately, not so much.
I don't see it, but I'll tell you what I do think.
Go on.
I think So if I was making a bet or a prediction, it's not as bold as yours, but I think we'll have Sting's last match, and I think it'll legitimately be his last match. But I suspect at All In, Wembley, enormous crowd, I suspect they'll do some sort of tribute. They'll have Sting come out, they'll present him with something, they'll have him present the belt or announce a new belt. You know how much they love belts.
No,
but
I can see that happening.
I think we're going to see Sting at Wembley.
Maybe
it'll be for some kind of a farewell or a thank you event, or maybe they'll honor him with something. Maybe they'll announce the AEW Hall of Fame. And
that means he'll be in the WWE Hall of Fame, the TNA Hall of Fame, and the AEW Hall of Fame,
and the WWA.
And the WWA.
He's the only man to be in the TNA, AEW, WWE, and WWA, and the Drumbali Championship Wrestling Hall of Fame. I've just put him in the South Armagh Hall of Fame.
Oh my god, that's too funny. Well, look, we'll leave it there. Sting's career, he is one of the greats. He absolutely I think on the Mount Rushmore of WCW, Sting is there first and foremost. But I would go even, and same with TNA. I wouldn't say on the professional wrestling Mount Rushmore, obviously, because that is a difficult thing to do. But if he's not there for you, he has to be almost there, because I don't think there is a WCW without Sting. TNA, he pretty much helped build that place to what it would become. And AEW, his impact is still felt, despite the fact that a lot of those guys watching AEW were probably kids when he was wrestling, maybe didn't watch TNA, and he survived WWE, his treatment in WWE. Barely. But, it's just, the guy's career is unbelievable.
He's not on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, but he is lurking in the rafters just above it.
It's even better. I love that. Do you think he still has the WWA Championship at home?
Oh, definitely.
Taking this with me.
He's such a mark for himself. Like when you walk into his house, over the top, when you go into the hallway, framed in like a huge ornate box, is the WWA Championship.
I can't remember what this looks like. I'm gonna have a quick Google. Oh, well, it wasn't that bad actually. It wasn't the worst belt in the world.
No, that's all the current WWE belts.
It was unified with the NWA Championship, though, in 2003.
So NWA had like a real, it's okay. It's very much a naughties belt.
It's not so bad.
The NWA had like this real prestigious.
Oh, wait. That's why it looks so different, because he had two belts. At inception, he had a manky looking belt, and then he had a pretty decent looking belt near the end, and I've never seen that one before.
Inception was probably a bit like the original
NWA belt,
TNA title in AEW. That by the time the pay-per-view came on, the belt wasn't ready; like it was only half made. But
because you know the one that Bret Hart's holding up, and it looks like a really bad boxing title.
Yeah.
The actual belt looks pretty good, but Jesus, what was even the point? Like, it was around for 2 years and it was gone.
But it's mad that they're affiliated with NWA, because NWA like 70s, 80s was like really prestigious, and when they affiliated with a wrestling company, it kind of meant they were legitimate. Like when WWF broke away, they were kind of looked down on at first.
Here's a question.
By the time you get to the 90s and noughties, NWA is like this needy little slut that's just hooking up with anyone.
Here's a question for you. Where did Sting win the WWA title without looking?
In the ring.
No, which country?
Let me see. Okay, so
wild guess.
I have a notion that a big WWA show we didn't cover was in Australia.
It was a live event. It wasn't even a pay-per-view.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. So it was on the tour.
Yeah.
Don't tell me he won it in like England or something.
He won it in Zurich.
Zurich?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Yeah,
you know what we're going to do? Do you know what we're going to do?
Switzerland, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what we're going to do, right? we are going to do a WWA arc because I need to see
from Zurich.
I've seen Inception. We've done Inception, but Eruption, Retribution, Live Event, and Reckoning all sound like. And I'm aware Live Event isn't the pay-per-view, but it's just in my head canon. That's the name of the pay-per-view. Live WWA Live Event.
Live Event.
Coming to you from Zurich.
From the wrestling capital of the world, Zurich, Switzerland. Like when you were younger and Vince was going, coming straight out of Poughkeepsie, and you're like, oh my god, Poughkeepsie must be like the biggest city in the world.
Or wait, well, if Vince was calling it now, they just blur over his face, or they like change his voice a little bit. Vince McMahon, thanks, Vince.
Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon. Oh god. Okay, well look, that's gonna wrap it up. Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here for tonight?
No, it's good luck. By the time this comes out, the match will have been over, the pay-per-view will be over, and I will be in the depths of a 4-day hangover. So enjoy the weekend, folks. This is legitimately like Sting has for 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s, 20s, 5 decades now, been a legitimate wrestling icon. I believe, and I know wrestling retirements are rarely true, but I believe he's legitimately retiring. This is a historic weekend. Embrace it, enjoy it, keep her lit.
Get ready for Sting versus The Undertaker to happen next year's WrestleMania.
26.
It will happen next year. I guarantee you, folks. We have not seen the end of Sting. We will see, because it's eating away at him. Obviously, he's like, "Oh, Darby, that was fun, but I have to go and do my spoopy time," and I think that's what's going to happen at some point. Because, looking back at Sting's career, it's the only thing he hasn't done. But again, Sting has worked with. One thing I will have to say before we finish up: Sting has worked with people like Darby Allin his entire career. The Abyss was the Darby Allin of TNA. Vampiro was the Darby Allin of WCW. So, I mean, it does fit. Maybe we're just looking at this with rose-tinted glasses. But one thing we're not looking at with rose-tinted glasses is the achievement of Steve Bourne and Sting. I'm looking forward to his last match. I'm looking more forward to covering WWA. I'm not going to lie to you, because that's going to be wild. But folks, if you want us to cover anything really that we can see, go over to thewrestlingrewind.com. You can also go to the Wrestling Rewind ntk@gmail.com. You can email us and we will cover whatever you guys want us to do. Sign up for the Patreon. We have several tiers there. Martin, what tiers have we got? What do the good people get if they sign up?
Well, you can sign up for an X-Pac Euro. And that's if you weren't aware of what X-Pac is shouting at the start of his entrance music, then I'm afraid to tell you that you owe us an X-Pac Euro.
Because he wasn't shouting X-Pac, he was shouting,
or what I used to think, Sex-Pac.
Which also makes more sense than what he's actually shouting.
Which is, make some noise.
Yeah.
It's like one of those, have you ever seen those audio or aural illusions where
I have, yeah.
If you listen to it, it's either saying green needle or brainstorm.
Depending on what you're reading.
Yeah, it would sound like two totally different words. So that's it, yeah. Apparently he's saying make some noise, not Sex-Pac. So right. You owe us a euro.
You do, for that bit of information.
You owe us a penny every day until CM Punk returns. And then when he does, a penny every day until he inevitably gets injured or throws another strap again. We used to have, and we should very briefly mention this, we used to have the Virgil tenor, and poor old Virgil passed away this week. So
we've renamed it.
Yeah, because we thought that was a bit gauche, a bit, it wasn't classy now that the man himself has passed away. But you can still give us a tenner, folks. In fact, you can give us better than a tenner. You can give us a rennet. Which is tenner spelled backwards.
Exactly.
And for your rennet, you'll get a shout out on the show. You'll be able to give us your legally distinct Buckley list. We might even get you on the show to discuss your legally distinct Booker list. But pride of place that you will frame and put, like Sting's WWA title, frame and put above the entrance to your house.
Or over the fireplace, or over your marriage bed.
You wouldn't even put it over the fireplace in case it dropped and got burnt. You wouldn't put it over the marriage bed in case an errant jizz were to land on it. So, it'll be kept very safe in a temperature locked box. A handwritten letter from the Wrestling Rewind, handwritten backwards.
You can't do better than that.
You can't.
You can't. I mean, come on. For your that's worth it alone, guys. What are you doing? Come on. That's like that's a cup of coffee now. Come on.
That Rennett's just burning a hole in your pocket.
Telling you, you will not get a better deal than that. And it's a conversation starter. You walk in, people are like, "What's that?" Well, let me tell you about Rennet.
Exactly. which is tenor spelled backwards.
Exactly. Which is tenor spelled backwards. So, folks, if you want to do that, please do. You can go over to thewrestlingrewind.com, find all the links there, because all the links to our social media, our Patreon, etc. Do follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We do have, we're getting a lot better at social media, let's put it that way. And there will be stuff going up from the archive on the feed. So if you're not subscribed to the Nerd to Know media feed, please do. We'll have shows up there as well. We'll be going back through the archive. And there's a bunch of interviews and stuff like that as well coming up. But the best way you can reach us, of course, is social media. And we will talk to you next week here on the Wrestling Rewind, where I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it will be fun anyway. We'll be back, and keep an eye on social media when we do our show plan. So see you later, guys, from the Wrestling Rewind. Bye.
It's Stint!
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.